Hampden Park, Glasgow, 1985. I was 8 years old and behind the goal to the right of the camera. My first experience of the oldest international match in football, Scotland against England. At that time it was an annual event and for many the biggest match of the season. It was our chance to send proud Edward and Maggie Thatcher's boys homeward to think again. However, like many traditions in football, those days are long gone. In the intervening 26 years we've only played them another 7 times. Won 1, drawn 1, lost 5. Anyway, do we really need to beat them at football to avenge our off-field issues with England? We've had a Scottish Prime Minister and we've got our own Parliament and nationalist government to go with it. So you'd think we were all a little bit more relaxed about things these days. When England were playing, would you support them if England were playing when they were playing Algeria?
No, never in 100 years.
The minute they put on that white shirt, they are, for 90 minutes, our enemy with the 3 red lines on the shirt.
It never really goes away, does it? When you ask any Scotland fan what would be the ultimate dream, they will say beating England at Wembley.
England. No team we hate more than England.
In general terms, England look down their nose at us.
In effect, they are being racist.
We'll take it on. We'll take it on. Come on, Wales. We'll take them on.
We find them arrogant, conceited, they've got an overblown sense of their own worth.
England are always going to win this, and England are going to win that, and they've won the same as us since 1966.
I think it's become a bit of a tired joke, really, any mention of 1966. It's an awful long time ago.
Scotland and England don't go together.
Hampden Park crowds were kept right on their toes in their most thrilling international match for some time, so gallantly won by the Scottish side. Pipers were there, of course, to give local colour as the fans get ready with the famous Hampden Roar.
Despite the great history of the fixture, I've found my own feelings towards the England team becoming far more relaxed than when I was younger. Partly due to the lack of matches against them, and partly due to the increasing importance of club football to me. I also lived down south for a while, and my experience of the English was normally a good one, with most England fans I encountered happy for any successes that Scotland enjoyed. So are thoughts of England as our rivals relevant anymore? And does thinking this way hold us back?
It's a great goal and a thoroughly well-deserved win for a live-wire Scottish side.
To find out, I've canvassed a few opinions. Firstly, sports writer Scott McDermott of the Sunday Mail and Daily Record met me in a pub close to Hampden on the south side of Glasgow. Before becoming a journalist, Scott had followed Scotland at home and abroad. Do you see England as our main rivals?
Historically, yes. Geographically, obviously, yes. Tribally, not in terms of the fans, I'm sure yes as well, but in a football sense, I don't think so. I think England are now on a different level, you know, with the players they've got, the manager they've got. And I think if Scotland are being realistic, you know, if we're talking about rivals on the international scene, we should be looking at teams in Scandinavia, your Denmark, Sweden, Norway, countries like that.
Next I travelled to Somerset Park in Ayr, which is close to the office of Hamish Husband, the spokesperson for the Association of Tartan Army Clubs, and someone who has many years of experience following Scotland, including several trips to Wembley to see us take on England.
I think for many of the older generation of Scottish fans, the England game became far less important, certainly in the 80s, than it was in the 70s, and by the 90s we had moved on, especially following the 1982 World Cup, where we played Brazil, Russia and New Zealand, and we found that it was far more fun travelling abroad than London. So the home internationals disappeared and we started following Scotland to European countries. Yeah. Now, saying that, you have to remember historically, this is the oldest international in the world, so it will always be an intense rivalry for the Scots. Whether it is reciprocated, I'm not convinced.
For an English viewpoint on the rivalry, I headed to the south of England and sat down with Clive Tilsley, who has been the main commentator on ITV for over a decade, covering World Cups, Champions League and a host of high-profile England games. Clive, do you, as an Englishman, do you still see Scotland as the main rivals to England, or have we been overtaken by other countries?
Do you want the good news or the bad news?
Well, it was a bit of both.
Well, England have not played Scotland in an international football match for over a decade, so it's difficult to have a rivalry when you're not playing each other. But I think, mistakenly, in brackets, England probably see their sights set a little higher than beating teams in Scotland's part of the FIFA World Rankings.
And for the official line in all this, I went back to the south side of Glasgow to Hampden to hear what the SFA's Head of Communications, Darrell Broadfoot, had to say. Before moving to the job at Hampden, Darrell had spent 10 years as a journalist with the Herald newspaper.
For centuries there's been the ancient rivalry against the old enemy, some iconic memories from the 60s, more recently had Don Hutchison's goal down at Wembley. That was one of my first games as a cub reporter at the Herald down there in 1999, and to see Don Hutchison score the winner down at Wembley is just a great experience.
October 2010, and Scotland are hosting Spain, who are still basking in the glow of winning the World Cup in South Africa. As is the norm these days, we didn't qualify, so I wonder how many of my fellow Scots turned to England as the team to support in the tournament.
Can I ask you who you supported in the World Cup 2010? I supported Argentina. Spain. Spain?
Spain.
Spain. Not England?
Not a chance.
Why not?
Because as long as I've been a wee boy living in Scotland, I would never have supported England.
When England were playing, would you support them? If England were playing, when they were playing Algeria? No, or America?
Never in 100 years.
No, why not?
Just the old enemy, we don't like them. And
no, why not?
That's it, no, just it's an ethic thing. Scotland and England don't go together.
Just don't support England. I think in general terms England look down their nose at us.
You think
they
so?
see us, they tend to turn the UK as England, and we resent that, and that causes us to sort of,
fair enough,
resent them.
So it appears that few Scotland fans got behind England at the World Cup. And what's more, it turns out we're good at passing that mentality on.
Does Spain have a big rival in football?
I would say France and Italy.
Yeah, so if France or Italy are playing, say, England, you would support England?
No, because I've lived in Scotland for 4 years and a half, so I would support Italy probably.
Ah, okay. So you've now, and do you think that most Scottish people disliked England, or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
Because you are rivals.
Rivals?
Scotland and England. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
You still see fans maybe with the flags of maybe Argentina tops, flags of Germany if they're playing England and stuff. I mean, do you think that maybe reflects a little bit negatively on us in the terms that there's maybe a lack of self-confidence?
I think it does. The whole anti-England thing doesn't really sit well with me, and I regard myself as a real Scotland fan. I mean, I was at Italia 90 when I was 10 years old. My mum and dad took me and went to many a Scotland game at Hampden as a fan. So I mean, I'm a Scotland fan. I'm a passionate Scotland fan, wanting to do well. But I just think at times we spend too much of our time worrying about England, and I don't think it does us any favours. I don't think that anti-English feeling reflects too well on us, and I don't think other countries would look upon us and think that it reflected favourably either.
I think we have moved away from England. It's an accusation that is held against us by certain parts of the media, and certainly the English media suggests that England is more important to us than anything else. That has changed. The most important thing now for a Scottish football fan is not the occasional game against England, it's qualifying for an international. However, what you have to remember is this complex relationship that we, Scotland, have with our big brother England. We've been arguing and fighting with them for hundreds of years. A big brother that's more important, not better looking, and they have achieved more, certainly in the football sense. They are, dare I say, the former World Cup winners. So we always have lived in the shadow of England, and I think perhaps one of the most important things is that occasionally when they get too big for themselves, we come along and beat them.
I don't think the dislike of the England national team exists to the degree that people assume, though. Personally, if Scotland aren't a major championship finals, the one team that I turn to first is England. I was over on American holiday and followed England's fortunes. Now, you could say that part of you like to see the kind of dismantling of the team, but you're familiar with the players because you see them week in, week out on television, so it's natural that if your own team aren't in it, that you follow those you're most familiar with. So I think there's a lot of mock dislike and indignation about England, but I don't see it myself.
Through football, never through the people. The people are fantastic, right, and I've got great friends in England and that, but Football-wise, no.
And it's not because they're English players, and it's not because they're English people, because I live in England. It's about the press who bum England up to all sorts of heights, and it just gets on everybody's wick, to be perfectly honest. To the extent whereby, let me just tell you now, I've lived in England for 20 years. It's getting in their wick now.
Right.
It is, because I tell you what, they're playing, Montenegro tonight, and there's hardly anybody going to Wembley. Why? Because they too are fed up with the hype that England's going to do so good, and they just can't actually do it. The millionaires cannot do it.
I've heard some people tell me that it's not the people, it's not the team, it's the media. I mean, do you maybe go along with that? Or?
I think when you let's think about the whole Scotland-England relationship. Most Scottish football fans actually have an English football team, whether it be Manchester United, Liverpool, Crewe Alexandra, West Bromwich Albion. However, it's a big step, and remember, it's only for football fans, this step to support your annoying big brother. They may support Ipswich Town when they were in the UEFA Cup, or Liverpool when they won the European Cups, but to support England, remember that is the England of Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton, Alan Ball, these great players going back into the 40s and 50s, Tom Finney, guys that you would maybe secretly admire, but the minute they put on that white shirt, they are, for 90 minutes, our enemy with the 3 red lines on the shirt. However, it's just football, that's all it is, and there are surveys that are done every 2 years, and when you ask ordinary Scottish folk, not football folk, most of them support England. This is a football thing, and it's about this blooming country that won the World Cup, and perhaps one day, God forbid us, they may win it again. And we may have to live within media, but as long as we choose to stay within the United Kingdom and pay our TV licences and watch Match of the Day, we'll have to suffer.
So what about the media? How much of a role do they have to play in this? On both sides of the border? And if they do have a role, do they recognise it? Do you resent the sort of, maybe the anti-English sentiment that comes over the border around about that time, the anyone but England? I mean,
I don't know how strong it is. I'm not particularly aware of it. If I commentate on a major England international, I do have a bit of a dilemma in so much as to how neutral A, I can be naturally, and B, how neutral I am expected to be. I mean, England versus USA in Rustenburg was a classic point. There would be a sizable number of American people watching our broadcast, irrespective of whether there are Welsh, Irish and Scottish people who simply don't want England to win. And England International is the one game where I would allow some kind of leaning to show in the commentary.
When you're writing as a journalist, I'm sure you're obviously very aware of the kind of language you use. I mean, obviously, I don't even mean yourself personally, but do you think it's easier for a journalist in Scotland to maybe be disparaging about the English in a way that you could never get away with any other nationality or any sort of ethnic group?
I do actually. I mean, I don't think it's that bad, but certainly around the time of major finals, as I say, when we're not there and England are, I think certain journalists probably do find it easier, maybe journalists with their own columns and stuff like that, probably can use language that they wouldn't use against another country, for fear of it being deemed racist or sectarian or whatever. And it annoys me slightly when I do see certain columns or certain journalists having an unnecessary pop at England that in effect they are being racist, and these are probably the same journalists who spend most of the Scottish football season complaining about sectarianism and all the rest of it.
It's a great opportunity for us to generalise, we hate the English so long as we beat the English. From a media point of view, yes, it is easier to give England a kicking because we've had it for so long, and that's why I think it's a kind of mock indignation we get when we play the English. It's okay, it's acceptable to beat them around a bit, and I suppose from our point of view it's David versus Goliath. We're a small nation in comparison to England. We want to beat them at every opportunity. I suppose from an English media point of view we find them arrogant, conceited, they've got an overblown sense of their own worth. So as a former journalist, yes, I do think it's been deemed acceptable to have a go at the English purely because they give us it back 5 times as hard.
Is it just Scots that think like this? What about our Celtic cousins Wales? I went to Cardiff on the day of an important qualifier for Euro 2012, and our opponents that day? England.
Scotland's main rivals are England. Who are Wales' main rivals?
England. No team we hate more than England.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because they're our closest rivals, they're right next door to us, and we just do not want to lose to England.
And why would England stand out more than others?
2, 3, 4, 500 years of history.
Yeah.
It always go on and on and on.
And is it just a sporting rivalry? It doesn't extend into like personal lives. You wouldn't have anything against an English guy, would you?
It's just, you know, I'm from North Wales, Welsh speaking. What happened about 200 years ago still sticks in the minds of people today. Still carries on now. It's just, you know, I've got no hatred for the English. One of those things.
England, because they're so smug. It's because we take them on, because they come over to our country and they think they can load it above us all. We'll take it on. We'll take it on. Come on, Wales, we'll take them on.
And is it just a sort of sporting rivalry, or does it carry on into other walks of life?
It's been ages and ages and ages. It comes from your grandfather's grandfather. Yeah, they've always thought they could take your land from us. Now it's coming to sport. It's not so much political, but we'll take them on. In sport, in life, in politics, we'll take them on.
There's a big World Cup. You've qualified. We haven't, which is normally the case.
Right.
A lot of Scots don't support England. Is that something that you resent?
No, we don't resent it, but then we support Scotland.
Because I think most English people.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Why would you support Scotland?
Because we're a home nation and we should support one another.
And do you resent the fact that Scottish? So you don't resent though that the Scottish people maybe don't get behind England in the way England would?
That's their prerogative. But at the same time, you know, the English, we support England, we support Scotland and Wales, whether it be Euros or the World Cup, and that's up to them.
And do you understand why maybe people don't support them?
Yeah, of course so. Because it's a rivalry between nations, but I think England fans, if you ask them, they'll support other nations.
They're too big-headed. It's the press more than the fans, I think. But England are always going to win this, and England are going to win that, and they've won the same as us since 1966. And whenever the commentators kick off, first thing you mention, 1966, it's rammed down your throat.
If you're watching an England game, you're going to hear reference to 1966, which I must say, from your point of view, I can understand it. But I suppose from the Scotland fan looking on,
you prefer it to be 1967, would you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We've heard this a lot of times now, and it possibly grates with some people. I mean, can you understand that, or is it something you can not relate to such? But maybe
yeah, I think a lot of these are tags. Any mention of 1966, if it's done in a kind of slightly pompous and nationalistic way, is going to stick in the throats of the people who actually don't really want to know about England's successes. But I think it's become a bit of a tired joke, really, any mention of 1966. It's an awful long time ago. And I think any reference to that particular year and that particular success is now done mainly out of frustration by England fans who are slightly, more than slightly embarrassed that that England haven't come close to repeating that kind of success and haven't really looked like coming close to repeating it for quite some time.
And finally, what about the future? Is there a place in the modern game for the fixture, or should it remain in the past? Would you be somebody that's in favour of bringing the fixture back, Scotland against England?
I actually have changed my mind a bit on this. Having been at Wembley on many occasions and having twice been on the pitch, I felt it belonged in the past. However, there's so many young folk that I would say deserve the odd visit to Wembley. The new Wembley is a magnificent stadium, and I think it's important that the Scotland-England game is held occasionally, because it would bring out, I would hope, the best in both sets of fans, and I would hope that the trouble, the disturbances by us in the 70s, by England in the 80s, has moved on. But just the occasional game. Although we lost Euro 96 2-0, I thoroughly enjoyed the day, apart from McAllister's penalty. I'm convinced the ball moved. But our job is to just knock the stuffing out of England occasionally, and as long as it's kept in perspective, I think it should come back.
And of course we remember the crossbar being broken, but actually that was an isolated instance. I mean, what happened every other year after every other year was fantastic Scotland support for England, and often some fantastic results and some wonderful players, some of the greatest players that I can remember, and certainly my dad can remember ever seen wearing the Scotland shirts. Now that is a very, very distant memory of mine, but it's in a sense still quite a vivid memory of seeing Dennis with his shirt half out, with his hand in the air, sort of walking back, having scored at Wembley, seeing Jim Baxter, seeing the players who we didn't see in English club football, the Willie Hendersons and so on, you know, we only really saw them once a year playing against England, you know, and seeing these great players who we kind of love to hate, you know, Billy Bremner, who scored 2 late semi-final winners against United, and played for Leeds, so as a Manchester United fan, but you know, they're representing his country, and you know, the most fantastic lineups, most fantastic support. Now that is still embedded in my memory, and I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years of age when all this was happening, and it's just not there anymore in people's perceptions. So it's very difficult. You really do have to get out the black and white movies in order to recapture where England-Scotland was once upon a time. And these little flickering images that we have from the 90s of Paul Scholes scoring to deathly silence at Hampden, of you know, Gary McAllister's desperation, of Gazza's celebration, of how close Scotland came to winning and overturning that aggregate deficit at Wembley. You know, even those are now over 10 years ago, and you know, coming back to the point that you started with, it's very difficult to keep any kind of relationship going when there's nothing to sustain it for that period of time other than these flickering black and white memories.
It never really goes away, does it? I mean, you ask any Scotland fan what would be the ultimate dream, they will say beating England at Wembley, whether it's new Wembley, whether it was old Wembley. The best memories Scotland fans have of going down there, getting the overnight bus, getting the trains down, having a good weekend and coming back up the road with a victory. So that will never leave, and the hope is that we can have these games back on a semi-regular basis, and more importantly get them in qualification finals.
I perhaps overestimated the strength of anti-English feeling among some Scotland fans, but I still believe that scarves or songs about people like Maradona don't serve as well at all. From what I've seen, the solution in all this is for us to have real success and start qualifying for tournaments again. That way we can feel better about what we do, rather than worrying about anyone else. And you never know, perhaps we'll beat the English when we get there.
Oh, Florida Scar.